A key decision related to a significant piece of President Trump's economic agenda is expected from the Supreme Court. The justices are weighing whether the president has the emergency power to solely impose sweeping tariffs.
Now, when the initial arguments happened earlier this month, court watchers noted that even the most conservative justices seemed to express skepticism. So questions are now coming up about what would happen to the billions collected from these import taxes if the court rules against the president. Here to talk more about that is Patti Jordan. She's an associate professor of the Neely School of Business at Texas Christian University. Patti, welcome and thanks so much for talking to us today.
Thank you guys for inviting me.
Yeah, I understand that your expertise and work focus on supply chain management, so your perspective will be a really integral part about this today. So more broadly, what are the biggest effects that you're seeing from the president's changing policies on tariffs?
Well, of course, we know that a tariff basically will add, cost to the overall landing of the product and so forth. So we have seen a little bit of an uptick since the April timeframe, prices going up because of that. Now, the good news is that other supply chain costs like disruption costs have gone down, transportation costs have gone down. So to some extent, a lot of that has not been passed on to the consumer, but we have seen a small percentage of increase depending on the product line in consumer products.
There's a lot of money on the line. The Trump administration says it collected $90 billion from the tariffs the president imposed under an emergency powers law. What would happen to that revenue? All of that money, the court rules that those tariffs are not legal.
Well, there's two options here. If they said that they had to go back and basically refund the money, the tariff system today has what we call a duty drawback system. So it is common for if someone pays a tariff and it needs to be refunded, there is a mechanism in place. However, that's going to go back to the person who actually paid the duty. So in many cases, it can go back to the retailer or the manufacturer. It would then be up to them to figure out if they wanted to try to figure out how to refund actual consumers, which could be a very costly task for them, considering you would have to go back and look at everything consumers bought from you. So more than likely, what would happen is if the duties had to be paid back or the tariffs had to be paid back, they would be paid back to whoever paid the duty to begin with or the tax to begin with. And then it would be up to them to see what they would do. Now, remember, some companies have been absorbing this cost of the tariff because of this unknown. So in many cases, they may just use it as part of the recovery of the cost that they've already outlaid for paying tariffs.
You touched on it there just a few moments ago, but the president has floated this idea of sending $2,000 tariff checks to Americans as early as next year. But some experts are saying that they only see that as putting pressure on the court to uphold the tariff program. So would it be possible to send out those kinds of checks if the court finds those tariffs illegal?
Yes, that would be one option that the federal government could look at, would be issuing a refund check basically through this $2,000 tariff collection process that Trump is floating right now. It would be probably the easier of the options, because then they could just the federal government would have to write everybody a check versus having to figure out how to refund all of the tariffs. But it is definitely an option. It would be just like some of the incentive checks that we saw during COVID.
And as Will mentioned, those checks, if they do go out, would go out next year, not today, with the holidays that are, right around the corner. Would that potentially overturn these tariffs, have any impact on the prices that we're seeing right now, or is that too late for consumers?
Fortunately, it is a little bit too late. If you anything that's the Christmas supply chain starts months and months ago. Almost all the product for this holiday season has already landed in the United States in either distribution warehouses or at the retailers. Most of their advertisement for Black Fridays, as we can tell, has already been issued and so forth. So the pricing is pretty much set, at least for currently. Now, they could offer some other discounts if they so choose to. And of course, a lot of that will have to do with how well the consumer buys the product. It's all a matter of really a matter of supply and demand. But if the consumers are buying the product at the current price, then there's no incentive for them to lower the price. If the consumers aren't buying because of the higher prices and other affordability issues, then of course they would have to reduce their price or adjust it. But again, with us only being about 6 weeks away from Christmas, it's highly unlikely that we'll see dramatic price increases between now and the holidays. It might occur more in clearance sales after the first of the year.
All right, and as we await the Supreme Court's decision about this particular case, we might have to invite Patti Jordan back onto our show to provide some analysis at that point. But for now, Professor Patti Jordan, thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you so much.